Hello everybody, Chris here, and in this GIMP tutorial I want to show you all how we can fade from one image into another image using a simple gradient trick combined with layer masks. So here you can see that I've got this one image, and if I hide the layer for it, you can see I've got another very similar image right behind. So I might want it to be one image on the left hand side, and then on the right hand side we will have the other. So how do we take these two images and mesh them together? Well, there are many ways to go about doing this, but with layer masks it becomes very simple. Because the idea of having a layer mask is that depending on what part of the image you're looking at on screen, you can have different opacity levels, that's the transparency, for the image on top so that the one behind it can show through. So you see when I set my opacity for the top image to 50 that we can actually see whatever's in the background. But we don't want it to be a consistent opacity, we want to control it with a layer mask. So to add the layer mask, I'm going to right click on the first image and choose Add Layer Mask from the drop down menu. And we are going to initialize the layer mask with full opacity. So what you should see happen is in the layers section, the image has a completely white layer mask positioned to the right of the image thumbnail. And we're going to want to select that. You can select the image or the layer mask with left click. So make sure that you select the layer mask and you get that selection border around it. And now we're going to go over to the gradient tool on the left. So for the gradient selection, we're going to specifically want foreground to background. So we could choose foreground to background RGB, but I believe that the HSV clockwise would also work perfectly here. And we just select that. And now that means foreground to background in terms of colors selected. So we want specifically white and black. So I'm talking about HTML notation FFF solid white. And then for the black, it should be 000. Meaning completely black and completely white. Now, with the layer mask still selected, if we go over somewhere like the center area of this image and we click, we're going to be able to start a gradient and we give it a direction. So wherever we aim the cursor after we press and hold left click on our starting point is going to be where the gradient heads towards. So because we're working with the layer mask, wherever I aim the center point and the direction of the gradient is going to control which parts of the layer mask are going to have opacity and which ones are not. So dragging it from the center to the right means that the right hand side is going to get the opacity. So when I let go on the gradient, I'm still able to control these points and move them around if I so choose. If you hold down control, you can make sure that you are adjusting it with very specific increments. So I'm going to have it going directly to the right and I'll let go. But when we're done with the gradient, we can simply hit enter. And you'll notice that on the layer mask, it's going to have black on the right and white on the left, which means it's showing full opacity on the left. But then on the right, we lose that opacity and we just have transparency. But in between, we get that fade effect that we're looking for. So I can undo that. If I want the fade effect to be more dramatic, I might do something like extend how long this gradient actually is so that it fades over a longer period of time. Hit OK to redo it. Now, anytime that you want to see the layer mask itself, you can right click on the layer and choose show layer mask. So that will show basically the gradient we created instead of the image itself. So you can see how it's fading from white right around here where we started the gradient over to the right and ended right around here. So that means in between it's lowering the opacity down as it goes over time. And then everything to the right of that is 0% opacity, which is what allows that second image to go ahead and pop itself in. So hopefully you can see how this works, being able to control the opacity with layer masks and allow one image to fade to another inside of GIMP pretty easily. So I've been Chris. I hope you guys found this brief tutorial helpful, and I will see you guys in my future video content.